Hello, Revere, and welcome to our Revere show. We have a special guest here. He's the Councillor At-Large. His name is George Rotondo. George, first of all, let me say welcome.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
The first question I would like to ask you, and people have asked me to ask you, is what is this thing called RISN?
Well, RISN is the Revere Immigrant Solidarity Network, and I kind of find it precarious because there are no Italian American immigrants, there's no Irish immigrants, there's no Polish immigrants, there's very selective group of immigrants, not to say that they're excluded, but it just seems it's very specific, you know, for one group of people. And the person that's running this from the group WE, which is Women Encouraging Empowerment, and quote other powers, members of the Revere community. It's run by a woman named Rachel Meketon, M-E-K-E-T-O-N. She's from Concord, Massachusetts, a very wealthy community, and she used to work in the city of Somerville at the same time that the mayor worked at the city of Somerville. And the controversy that's going around is, if people would take a look at this, this is what they're bringing to people's homes, and they've asked, councilors and candidates for council, if you could focus in on this, I'd appreciate it. Camera can focus in, right? And what they're asking for, and I'll tell you what some of the candidates have spoken, and actually some of them, like myself, have said that they have written down incorrect information. So like one of the questions they ask is, should the City of Revere agencies, including the police department, be allowed to contact or collaborate with the federal immigration authorities regarding individuals that have not been convicted of a crime? So this is a very, very peculiar question. It's a yes or no question, by the way. And this is a group that's supported by the mayor, although he will tell you that that isn't the case, but it's quite clearly the case, as been told to me by people from RISN that solicited me, in which I got this document. And, you know, so they're asking whether or not federal immigration authorities should be able to, you know, speak to people who have been arrested. Because if you're arrested, you're not convicted of a crime, but you're being actually arrested for a crime that you may have committed. And so they're saying only and after, if you get convicted, we'll ask you if you've committed a crime elsewhere in the country. So for example, like Caitlin's law out in California, if, for example, a person were to have committed murder or rape in any other part of the state, for example, if you were a police officer from the City of Revere, you wouldn't be able to run their information to see whether they have a federal warrant out for them, because underneath this, they don't want you to. And that's a problem, because that's two standards of law, whereas if it was you or I, you know, they'd run our information to see whether we were seeking trial in another state or if we were wanted from another state. Whereas this, they're saying, oh no, you have to wait until they're convicted. And I find that as very, very, very peculiar. And, you know, the other thing is, should the City of Revere, including the police department, be able to inquire into individuals' immigration status or place of birth if such information is not required by law? Well, okay, if it's not required by law, well, in what instances does that take place? So, I mean, these are very charged questions, and I find it an issue. The other, you know, these are questions, so for example, Ira Novoselsky, he believes that the federal immigration authorities, you know, regarding individuals that have been not convicted in the City of Revere should not be contacted if they were arrested here. And that's pretty much advocating for sanctuary city status. That's a big problem. The same thing with Dimple Rana and David Ramos. In fact, one of them actually, Dimple Rana, she works for the City of Revere. And, you know, I find that a problem. Some candidates refuse to answer this altogether because they thought it was garbage. I don't believe in that. I believe in answering the questions. But that's a big problem, you know, that is part of the reason why people were asking you this issue, because it's an issue.
Very interesting. I'd like to ask you a question, if I may.
I'll answer it if I can.
Right. I heard on the news something this morning about DACA. I have no idea what it
Sure.
is. Could you explain it to me as a layman and to the people?
My understanding of it, and even my understanding
Which
could
has
be,
to do with this too. It could be indirectly.
indirectly. So, for example, if you were a child that came here, no fault of your own, your parents came here, you were born, you were born outside the country, and they brought you here, overstayed their visa or what have you, and you were educated in the school system. Well, you're not here legally per se, and then you could be deported. Now, if you were to go to any other country in the world, you would be deported. Correct?
I guess so, George.
I'm telling you because I've been in many countries and that their laws are very, very strict. But we have to have a heart too. We have to think about, what's best. I don't know that answer. I have a hard time with it. But you know what? If there was a child that was under DACA and they had committed a crime in Texas, murder or rape or something like that, and underneath this particular issue, they came to Revere with their family and were here and they got pulled over for a traffic violation. Then they ran this person's name and found out that they were wanted by ICE and that they had committed a crime in another state. And they had a federal detainer on them from ICE. Should we not honor that?
I would think so. We should.
So it's a little bit more complicated than just that, isn't it?
Right. Could you do me a favor, George?
Uh-huh.
I looked up on the computer. I'm not a computer.
You got it. Let's see it.
Let me show it to you. You can read it right there. If you can see it. I don't know if you can.
Well, that's Wikipedia. I'm going to
Go
do
ahead.
something a little bit.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah, so I'm going to go by what the federal statute is.
Yep.
So I'm going to see what the Fed says, and we're going to see if we can pull that up, because I don't like going to Wikipedia or anything like that, because at the end of the day, it's deferred. It was a deferred action by the Obama administration, and if you remember, during that time, we were having tens of hundreds, if not thousands, of children that were coming to our border, parentless, which is a horrible thing. Could you picture sending your child across a desert border in which coyotes, meaning the horrible people that smuggle these poor people across, would take advantage of them, would physically hurt them? How could you send your child across a border like that? Is beyond me. Things must be so bad in their country that risk would be such a lesser threat.
Well, George, excuse me. If an immigrant is here illegally, a female, I'd say,
If they're an illegal immigrant, go ahead.
and they have a baby here, the baby's born in the country.
The baby is a legal resident.
An illegal?
Is legal.
Oh.
Is a U.S. citizen, excuse me, not a resident. I stand correct myself. Is a legal citizen.
Oh,
You come to these shores, you're born here, you're a U.S. citizen.
Right. So how can you deport the mother because she's illegal and leave the baby here if she doesn't want to?
Well, you know what? Well, so by your standard, if tomorrow people got on a plane and decided, like they had actually tours from China where they would go into San Francisco, you can look it up, and they would actually give birth in America so that their children could have U.S. citizenship status.
You mean they knew when they were coming from China that they were going to be?
If you're pregnant, you know you're pregnant, pal.
Oh, yeah.
You don't come here, not knowing you're pregnant. So
they would come here deliberately to give birth in this country?
think about it. By that standard, people could come here, have their children, and then, find a way to come in. And it's a legal process.
How is it with other countries, if I may ask you?
No.
It wouldn't work?
No. No.
Okay.
We're very lenient in America. So what is DACA? On June 12, 2012, the Homeland Security announced that certain people who came to the United States, children, and met several guidelines, may request consideration of deferred action for a period of 2 years. So 2012 plus 2 years is 2014. It's been extended for over 5 years now to 2017. They are also eligible for work authorization. Deferred action is used is a use of prosecutorial discretion to defer removal action against individuals of a certain period of time. Personally, this is my own personal opinions regarding immigration.
Is there any age limit on the children? I mean, what they can...
I don't really see it there. So this is my opinion about the immigration issue. I believe that we need to really take a look at what we're doing. We're absorbing 1 million people per year. We need to bring in the best and the brightest to the community and our country, because isn't that what we're looking for? In the end, the best, the brightest, you know, to come to this community. Now, whether that be somebody who's a landscaper or, for that matter, technology specialist, you know, the government can figure out what they consider the best and the brightest. I'll leave that to those people in government that are smarter than I. But we have to figure out how many people we're going to absorb and from where and to what end. So the other part of the equation is that we have well over 13 million, 14 million people here, quote, illegally. 99% of them are God-fearing, caring people who just want to work to have a better life. How do you know, hold that against them? I can't personally. On a personal level, I can't. But we have laws. This country is a country of laws. I was just speaking to my barber. He's Moroccan, and he come in on a lottery system. And in his country, I couldn't go there and overstay a visa. I'd be arrested, quote unquote. That's his statement. I couldn't go there and have a kid and actually obtain citizenship there for my child. That's what he said to me. I don't know if that's the case, but yet we allow it here. But back to my issue, you know, we have bigger threats than just immigration. We have threats from terrorists. We have threats from narco-terrorists, people that are bringing in drugs. In fact, you know, we're going to be talking about this issue later on, Narcan. You know, so we need to have a wall, whether it be a physical wall, whether it be an electronic wall. We need to protect our borders, not only in the south, but in the north. Make no mistake about it. If they stop coming in from the south, they're going to come in from the north.
Right.
And there's a reason why, you know, we have walls. Mr. Zuckerberg has a wall around his house. The Chinese had a wall put up at one time, you know, for those purposes. It worked for their period of time, but as in anything, you learn how to circumvent it. But we need to protect our borders. The people that are here, we need to think about giving them some type of relief, whether it be a process where they can find, you know, citizenship here. And those people that are committing crimes, like the group MS-13 that were caught in Chelsea and East Boston and were deported through ICE and the FBI, you know, those are people that you got to worry about, just like you got to worry about, you know, the mafia, whether it be Irish or Italian or whoever it is,
right.
The Jewish mafia,
right.
The Russian mafia.
Yeah.
You know, these are people that inherently want to hurt people for their own benefit.
Right.
So the question is, you know, where do you draw the line and with who? And people try to, you know, pigeonhole the issue. Oh, you're against Hispanics, or you're against, you know, people from this group or that group. You know, immigration is a blind issue. It's not for one group or the other. In fact, you know, and granted, it's of a very small significance. They grabbed the guy from Boston who was Irish and here for 13, 14 years because he was here illegally. And that's the issue of justice in our community. Remember, you know, there's a lady that stands tall with a scale and a blind on her eyes, and it's called justice. We are a country of laws, and not men or anything else, but laws. And once we lose sight of that, that's when our downfall takes place. Once we choose which laws we choose to obey, that's when we lose our country. And that young Moroccan man who cuts my hair, Nordine, great guy, great father, great American, he said to me, and I quote, "I'm a Muslim and you're a Catholic, and we both believe in God. We both believe in Jesus as a messenger for him. For me, I believe him as a Messiah," and so forth. And we were talking about the religious aspects. And he said, you know, in this country, you can be anything you want. You can pray to anybody you want, and no one's going to bother you. And he's right. And I asked him why. And he thought about it, and then he said to me, because of the law. I said, that's right. It's the law of this country that protects you. Not me, not the police officer, but the law. And the law is carried out by the police officer. Lady of Justice is blind and shows equal balance of the law. It doesn't work perfectly, but it's the best one we have.
That's very interesting, George. Very interesting. And even I learned something, but I'm sure the people of Revere did too. Now, you're running for Councillor at Large.
Yes.
So good luck to you. My second question is, what issues do you find in the city of Revere? And I mean the city of Revere.
Addiction. This is one of the biggest issues that we have. I want to bring great praise to Chris Alba, who was doing outreach work today. I met him. And obviously SUDI here in the city of Revere, Mayor Regal's done a great job with that. You know, he should be applauded for it. But this is our biggest issue, addiction. And the other one is homelessness within our community that we have to deal with. There's quite a bit of it down by the beach and elsewhere. And it saddens me, the issue of both addiction but homelessness as well. It's something that hits me very strongly as a human being. And I think that every person in our community that knows somebody that's addicted should have this Narcan. It's very easy to use. North Suffolk Mental Health teaches a class, I believe, on Tuesday nights. I suggest people speak to SUDI on Revere Street and have them help you out with obtaining Narcan. If you or your loved one or someone that you know is addicted and you might be near them, is a little controversial because some people think you're enabling somebody. I believe you're just giving a person another chance to live and realize that there is treatment, there is hope, and you know, that you can get help and become productive, and that we love you as a community regardless of, you know, what addiction may afflict you, and that we're here to help you.
Right.
And you know, no one wakes up wanting to be an addict, and I feel strongly about this.
If people are addicted,
Yep.
where can they really go for help? Can you just give them a little information on that?
Well, I would say the first thing that they have to do is recognize that they need help, right? So they have to admit to themselves, yes, I'm an addict, or yes, I need help. And every community in the Commonwealth, if you go to them, will find a place for you, or at least help you. I would say, to be honest with you, SUDI here in Revere will help you if they're not open. I would go to the Mass General. I would go to any of the hospitals and ask them for help, and go to them. Your doctor, you know, they'll be able to help you. You know, I think we need to do greater outreach within the Hispanic community over this issue. Because of a language barrier, I don't think we're reaching them as much as we could better serve them. So, you know, that's one of the things that we could do.
Is it true that the more people, the town has more people that are on drugs, that the crime rate is higher because of that?
I don't know exactly what the correlation is. I can't speak to it. I can tell you that Revere, like Everett, has a very high use of, has a very high addiction rate. And with addiction, if the people can't afford the drugs, they have to commit crimes in order to get money to pay for the drugs.
What are some of the deadliest drugs out now? Cocaine is one, I guess.
Some people would say food and alcohol, but we're talking about, you know, heroin being the most, one of the most dangerous ones, the opiates, and one of the things, you know, they had come to my hospital in the emergency room about a month and a half ago, and they were talking about how they were mixing heroin with phenobarbital and carfentanil and fentanyl. And these drugs, carfentanil and fentanyl, they're used in in a surgical setting in which they, you know, give relief, but what they do is they dilate the blood vessels and drop your blood pressure. Phenobarbital puts you in basically a comatose state. It also works as a anti-seizure medication, as you know, but it also acts as a sedative. And then obviously we know what heroin does.
And what about oxycodone? What does that do?
It's a pain reliever, just like.
But it's also an addiction too.
Sure. I mean, it has addictive properties in it. So doesn't benzodiazepines. That's another thing, like Ativan or Klonopin. People get addicted to that. So, they're getting addicted to a drug that they call Molly. I believe it's called Molly. Maybe some people would better understand the street name, but Neurontin, people are using Neurontin, at a ridiculously high dose, and they're getting high off of that. So, you have to ask yourself how much, mental anguish is someone having that they're using these drugs to get rid of it.
That's sad. Here's a good question that just came in on the jukebox here.
You mean your laptop? Come on.
No, I call it juke because I download the music.
You don't have any German music, do you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I got loads of it. What is the latest news on Suffolk Downs and Wonderland?
To be quite honest with you, I've heard a whole bunch of things about development. Some people have said to me that they're going to develop thousands of units down at Suffolk Downs. But, whatever they do there's probably going to be a master plan regarding it. And it's probably going to be a mixed use, which I don't want. I'd like to see, light industry. This is a commercial space. Revere doesn't need any more residential properties in commercial spaces, period. I don't like the idea of low-end retail or mid-level retail coming to the City of Revere because it pays nominal. Most people can't survive on a retail paycheck. They have to work a second job. I would love to see Merck Shop and Dome and other companies come to the City of Revere that a light industry, whether it be a tech company, whether it be something else. But I'd like to see something where people could get, good paying jobs, jobs that pay $50,000 and above so that you don't have to work 2 jobs to support a family. Maybe working retail as a manager, you might make $55,000 a year, but that's one job for one facility. It's not going to help people in the end. So there's a lot of things that I'd like to see take place in Revere, and we have great potential. What Mr. Zink is doing down at NECO is a great thing. And, he's setting forward the zoning in order to attract people to the City of Revere. But that's what I want to do at Suffolk Downs, and that's what I want to do at Wonderland. It's part of the reason why I want a moratorium on residential construction, so we can, basically assess what's going on in this city, whether it be traffic, EMS, whether it be related to our infrastructure, such as water and sewer, and our capacity. But the council and the mayor are against it for whatever reason they have. And for me, I believe strongly in it. At this point, we're talking about major pieces of land, and it's a commercial space. I'm talking about residential moratorium on a big scale. Something like 50 units or greater, you need to really think about what's going to happen. I'll give you an example. There are places for residential development, and I believe this firmly. People may disagree with me. But down the beach, I can foresee that whole beach being condominiums one day. You know what I mean? With shops on the bottom floor like they have in Europe. That's a place where you want to have, residential development. You know what I mean? That's where you want it. And they need to open up the fire station down there and keep it open to have a full complement of medics down there. Because right now there's several thousand of people that are over the age of 65 that live on that eastern part of our city. We need to be able to better serve them. And so, the majority of the calls in this area are pretty much medical, and, you'd want them to be able to respond to them. Just my thought.
That's good. Now I have a question for you, George. Usually I start off the program by asking you a little about your education, but
Sure.
we have 3 minutes left.
Well, we can go about that.
Take a couple of minutes.
So, the funny part is I used to be a truck driver, and the company folded. It was St. Johnsbury Truck, and I was a Teamster for many years, and went on to become an EMT. The nurses in the emergency room said I should be a nurse, And at that point, I had a difficult time with education because I graduated with an 8th grade reading ability from Everett High. And I'm dyslexic, yet I can speak, as you know, many, many languages. And sure enough, I went to Bunker Hill and became a nurse. And thereafter, you know, worked as a cardiothoracic care nurse for many, many, many years. And right now, I'm over at Emmanuel College in between a BSN to MSN program, and actually took this semester off. But you know, so I'm in the middle of that. I've taken courses over at the University of Penn State through correspondence, UMass. So at this point, I want to finish the one thing out, and I'm working towards becoming a nurse practitioner, and that's what I hope to do. I don't like to talk about it because it's kind of, it's boring at the end of the day. It is what it is. But to be honest with you, the thing that I'm most proud of is being a father and my 2 daughters.
We have a couple of minutes left, so I'd like to ask you this question. As a senior, there's an election coming up in the near future about cut where the seniors would get a 10% discount off their taxes.
That's not true.
That is not true.
No. What they're talking about is a 10% residential exemption. Not the 10% that Mayor Arrigo talked about, which was a 10% across the board for every person in the city. This is different. This is a state product that we're switching one for the other. So it's a 10% exemption, and you have to qualify for it. If you don't qualify, you don't get it.
And what do you know what some of the qualifications could be?
I believe you could call the city assessor to find out exactly. They would have the information. I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh.
So it's only going to benefit a select group of people. You know, one of the things that people need to realize is that this election is going to be about immigration status in the city. People don't realize it. We got a group of people running for Councillor At-Large, and they want sanctuary city status in the City of Revere. I don't. That's a problem. And you've got people that, you know, we have to really think about that. So, if you want sanctuary city status, you're going to have to, you know, you'll vote for the people that the mayor support. If you don't, you vote for everybody else.
Judge, we're almost out of time. I want to say thank you for coming up and good luck to you. God bless you. Thank you.
All right.
And God bless our military. God bless the people of Revere. But most of all, God bless the United States of America. And thank you for listening.